Hi all, welcome back. The security stories have been going down well. People have been asking for more, so here we go with another security story. The last one was about strip clubs, and that got me into thinking because I remembered a few bits from there. So this one's a celebrity special. I'm going to try not to get sued at the same time. So when I worked back in that strip club, we had a certain celebrity turn up from Eastenders, and it was a male, and he's still in Eastenders, and he has been Eastenders for a long time. I'm not going to name him, but people might be able to guess. He turned up with a guy that was a known drug dealer, small-time drug dealer. He wasn't like a guy that stood on street corners. I don't mean that type. I mean like driving around in flashy BMWs, sharp suit, involved in the higher end sort of stuff, but he wasn't exactly Carlos Escobar, if you get my meaning. So they came into the club, and the celebrity, about 2 hours later, I saw him, and he had done so much cocaine that his nose was basically two clods of white, and it dripped down, so he literally had two white lines down his face where it had just been dripping from his nose, and he actually had two white lines down the front of his black suit jacket. So that's how off it he was, and I actually wanted to get rid of him from the club. But like a lot of places, you know, it's not always the call of the security staff whether they can or not. I ran the security there, but the club owner was there as well, and he made the decisions of who could stay and who could leave. And if someone's a celebrity, a lot of the time the club owners will want to keep them in the club for obvious reasons. It's bringing in more interest, custom, etc., etc. So this guy is absolutely off it. He starts being pretty rude to the girls. He starts talking about he starts asking the strippers if they want to come back to his hotel room, despite the fact he was, I think, in a relationship at the time. He calls them all extremely rude words, like misogynistic terminology that you might say to females if you were that kind of person. We can all imagine the type of words I'm talking about. And he's basically describing some of the things he would do to them. And by the way, he'd hardly spent any money, so the girls were actually getting really annoyed that this guy had not, you know, spent any money on them at all, but was subjecting them to all this rude language and just being a gross dude, basically. He was kind of gropey as well, so, you know, they weren't very happy about that. Again, I approached management. I wanted to throw the guy out, told no, you're not allowed to do that. So eventually the guy did get hold of a couple of the girls really inappropriately, and I basically just grabbed him and threw him out, and I didn't even ask management after that, because at that point it had gone to like a what I would call a legal call, you know, that I would have been happy to have been sacked at that point if I couldn't have thrown him out, because I'm not just going to stand around as a human being and watch someone grab hold of people. So he went, and I just basically chucked him out on his ear, and he was complaining and whatever, but him and his mates were so off it, you know, they didn't even know what was going on, to be honest. So that was that. The following week, I'd just been working there as a kind of fill-in, and then the following week I'm back at a normal club that I used to run, which was like an R&B club. It was pretty trendy at the time. Trendy's probably such an old word, isn't it? I'm such an old man. Whatever the cool word is nowadays, it was one of them sort of clubs, you know, that everyone wanted to go to. Peng, whatever they say. And everyone wanted to go to this place. There was queues down the road. And this guy, same celebrity from EastEnders, walks to the front of the club, front of the queue, and he says, I want to come straight in. And I said, it's you again. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, do you not remember me from last week? I threw you out of strip club. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, mate. Can I come in? And I said, look, I'll have a word with the management, but I don't particularly want you in here because I don't like you. So he got a bit funny, you know, he was arguing with me. The management came out, oh, great, it's this celebrity guy, they want him in. So same situation, you know, we had that a lot. And I said to the management, the guy's an idiot, you know. So as he went in, I said to him, look, as soon as you mess about in there, I'm going to dosh you out. So, and it won't be pretty. I'll just dosh you out in front of everyone. It'll be embarrassing. So don't mess about in there, basically. Keep your hands to yourself. Don't upset any girls. And this was just a normal club, you know, so it wasn't like a strip club. But I could just tell from the kind of person he was the week before that, you know, he wasn't particularly nice around the girls. So he goes in. He's with the same type of crowd, you know, a bunch of cokeheads and whatever. And I had two doormen. I was running the door there, head doorman, and then two of the doormen I had that were just helping out were South African guys, and they'd not that long been over in the UK. They were both like rugby player guys, pretty tough guys. Didn't mess about. They didn't take any nonsense from people. Let's put it that way. And they were very like brusque and tough speaking sort of thing, and their accent and everything, which I'll try and do, but I'm probably not going to do it very well. But that kind of made them sound even more like aggressive. They weren't like aggressive, but they didn't stand for nonsense. So they're downstairs, and this guy goes down there. I didn't think much else of it. So the next thing I know, about half hour later, this guy, the celebrity, comes screaming out of the club, and he gets hold of me and he says, "The doorman, your doormen are attacking me. They've attacked me. They've attacked me. They've assaulted me." And then he literally ran off down the road, like screaming. So I thought, what the hell's going on? So I call the staff up. I say, "What's happened downstairs?" And they go, "Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. We went in the toilet and we found this bloke in there being rude to the girls and sniffing stuff off the side. So he tried to act manly with me. So I slap him. I slap him around the face and I hold him there and slap him a few times." And I said, "Oh, mate, maybe you shouldn't have done that." And he said, "Well, he was being abusive, and then he kept shouting to me, 'Eastenders, Eastenders.'" And I said, "What the hell is an Eastender?" And they had no clue that this guy was a celebrity. They did not understand anything about the soap opera. They didn't know anything about that. So he had been rude to them, and they basically stuck him up against the wall and slapped the hell out of him for being rude. So a kind of good comeuppance. I don't agree with like randomly slapping the hell out of people, but if you're going to be abusive to women and you're going to disrespect the rules of the club, then I'm not particularly averse to that either. But yeah, that kind of amused me, and I never saw that guy again, funnily enough, so good. Then same club. So this time we had a load of basketball players come over from America. Now, I'm not big into basketball, so I don't know really. I only knew one of the players. But on this particular night, there was a load of players there. They're all massive, obviously. I'm only like 5'9", so these guys are like huge. And they were like big celebs, you know, I don't know. But they were paid a lot of money. People seemed to think they were a real big deal. And I'm down in the club, making sure everything's cool. And one of these basketball players, about halfway through the night, he goes to me, when are you going to let me into the VIP? Now, this club didn't really have a VIP. It had like a little area where people could like go and sit. That was like a private area, but it wasn't really a VIP. It wasn't anything, to be honest. You know, it wasn't worth even going to sit there. So I said, "Look, we haven't got one." He goes, "No, man, you must have. Every place has got a VIP. You're lying to me, man. You're lying. You know." And I said, I promise you, I've got no reason to lie to you. You know, I'm not. You know, I've got nothing to hide. I haven't got a VIP room here. There's no such thing. Yeah, yeah, man. There is. So he points over. He goes, "It's in there," and he points at the toilets. So I'm thinking, what? And I said, "No, that's not a VIP." But before I say anything, he puts £50 into my pocket and he says, "Let me just go in there." So I said, "Well, you can go in there, that's no problem," you know. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. Now, the toilets in this club were actually super nice. You know, there was marble everywhere. They were really big. They had like a water feature down the wall that was like a load of like rocks in the wall and like a waterfall thing. Loads of cool lighting, artwork. It was really nice toilets, and they were super clean as well. And part of the toilets didn't even look like a toilet. So you could sort of think maybe that, you know, you're going in somewhere nice, but there were still toilets in it. So that was pretty obvious. But this guy was pretty drunk, and whatever else he was on, I don't know, but he wasn't all there. So I thought, well, I'll leave him to it. And I kept the £50 because I thought in about half an hour he's going to see me again and he's going to want it back, which I'd have given him, you know. And I went upstairs, I told a couple of the other guys, I said, this dude gave me 50 quid and he's gone in the toilet. So they were laughing. Anyway, go back down to the club. This guy comes up to me and I think, oh, he wants his £50 back. So I'm going to like reach in and give it to him. And he gives me another £50. He goes, I want to go back in. And I'm like, what, in that room there? And he was like, yeah. So it's the toilet again. I said, mate, you can go in there. It's no problem. Thanks, man, thanks. And he's like shaking my hand really vigorously. And he goes back in there and he stays in there for half an hour. Weird. And I went in there to see what's going on, and he's just in there like talking to people that were going in and out of the toilet, you know, like it's, and there was music in there and everything, and like there's even seats in there. So don't get me wrong, he wasn't like just stood next to a urinal, but it was still the toilets. And I got up to my mates again. I said, that guy's gave me another 50 quid for going in the toilet. And they're like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And the guy is minted, right? These guys, they were professional basketball players. So they were earning like hundreds of thousands of pounds a month or whatever. So it's probably nothing to him, 50 quid. But for me at the time, I was only a young lad. You know, that was decent tip. And I thought, well, he's definitely going to realise, third time, same thing. Another 50 quid, he goes back in the toilet. And he again stayed in there for a while. When he left that night, I'm up on the door now talking to the guys on the door, and this guy leaves, and I think he's finally going to cotton on, you know, he's going to have a go at me and want his money back. And he like hugged me and he said, mate, I've had the best night, you know, you English guys, you know, you really know how to party, and I really want to thank you. And he gave me a massive handshake and he walked off. He was super happy, and he'd been in the toilet 3 times, which he could have done for free. So you work that one out. I have no idea what was going on there. The last celeb was also, I think he's a basketball player, sometimes likes to dress like a woman. That might be a bit of a clue. And don't sue me if you're watching. I don't think he will be. I didn't actually like this guy very much. I kind of did a bit of like, I was looking after him in the club, making sure that he didn't get attacked pretty much, because he'd come over from the US. He was, you know, going around various places, and he was in this club, and he basically had like a booth plotted up in this club. He was sat there with a couple of his, he had like a minder with him, and this minder was like the biggest Walter Mitty I've ever met. He said he was like ex-Delta Force, and he had all these weird tattoos and stuff. But, you know, I did a bit of chatting to him, and, you know, I've got quite a few ties with the defence industry, and I basically quickly worked out he was about as much Delta Force as Steven Seagal, and his martial arts, you know, training was about as good as Steven Seagal's as well, i.e. not good. So he's got this Walt Mitty guy with him, and then like a couple of hangers-on, his manager or whatever, who like sniffed out their brains on white powder. And he sat there, and his whole aim for the entire night, and he basically wanted me to assist with that, was bring women over to him. So he had like a roped off section. These guys would feed like women over to him, say, do you want to come and meet this basketball player, celebrity? Girls would obviously say, well, yeah, I would be interested to meet him. They would come over, and then he would look up, and basically to one of the people that were working for him, he would either go like that or like that. And if he shook his head, that mean they weren't good looking enough, get rid of them. So these girls would come over and literally be just taken straight off again without even meeting him. And if he shook his head, that mean if he nodded, that meant he wanted to take him back to the hotel room to this party he was having afterwards. And one of the girls came up to me, and she was a local girl, and she said, I've wanted to meet that guy. He's like a hero of mine. I play on ex-local basketball team, girls basketball team. We're doing really well. He's like an inspiration to me. Do you think you can get me a seat next to him so I can just ask him a couple of questions? It would mean the world to me. And she was a real sweet girl. And I said, look, I don't know the guy, but I'll ask him a favour and, you know, see if he'll do me a favour. So I whisper over to him and I say, could you meet this girl? And I lied. I basically said, she's like a relative of mine, you know, she idolises you, she plays basketball, she would love to meet you and just ask you a couple of questions. So he's like, yeah, I suppose so. And he looked like all annoyed about it, you know, like it was a real drag to have to talk to someone for like 1 minute. And she sits next to him, and next thing I know, she's come crying over to me, and she's like sobbing on my shoulder. And I said, well, what's going on? And she basically said to him, you know, I idolise you, and I would love, you know, to know all about the stuff, you know, what got you into basketball and all that. And he said, I'm not interested in talking to you. I think you're pig ugly, and, you know, I've got nothing to say to you. And that was it. And I was absolutely blown away. So I went up to the guy and I said, you can't talk to people like that. And he said, I can talk to people however I want. You know, that was his vibe. I didn't particularly like it. At the end of the night, he gave me 400 quid cash on top of what I was obviously getting paid. And he said, oh, I'm sorry about earlier, you know, that's just how it is. And that was the tip he gave me. He then gave 400 quid cash to the cloakroom attendant as well, just for handing him a jacket. So that's the kind of money that the guy had knocking about. He then left and went off to his hotel room, and they all went off back there, and God knows what happened in the hotel room. But what a gross guy. And if that's what money does for you, then he was just so horrid, and the people that were surrounding him were so vacuous and false, like parasites. And the girls that he ended up with were not particularly nice girls. So he just ends up surrounded by absolute horrid people. And good. Well, there you go. There's my celebrity stories. I've got a couple of others that I can't say because there's too many problems with the story that I can't talk about. But I wish I could, and if I ever get an opportunity to talk about them in a manner that's befitting to YouTube, that won't get anyone in legal trouble, then I'll try to. But I hope that keeps you happy, and I'll see you guys next time.